Just to look in the heights, out with the lights, start my day. There are fights and endless deaths and bills to pay. In the heights, I can't survive without cafe. Just to look in the heights, out with the lights, start my day.
Yes, yo. Your nerdy girl, your favorite nerdy girl is here, and we are reviewing In the Heights. Now available at all theaters, movie theaters, and on HBO Max. Stay tuned for my commentary. I'll review the pros and cons. I know that this movie has caused quite an uproar online, but I am going to state my opinion, and I realize that people might not be on the same page, but nonetheless, we're all going to differ. Nonetheless, um, you can leave me a comment, but again, if it is disrespectful, I will disable the comments. Just a fair warning. Now let's get into this review, shall we?
I run this town.
On the plus side, I will say that the songs are really catchy. They're really Piragua got stuck in my head long after watching it. So, cheers. There's a lot of good, memorable songs that get stuck on a loop in your head, and this is Chatty. Really good. Neighborhood Piragua, but we call it. Majority of us call it frio frio, but that's another thing. We'll get into that. So, in going into this review, I'm gonna state that I'm a longtime resident of Washington Heights, and so this neighborhood is very much near and dear to me. And so, much like a lot of people in this neighborhood, we're gonna have a keener eye as opposed to just the average fan of the play. I wasn't familiar with the play. I did not catch it on Broadway, so this is my first introduction into In the Heights. I can honestly say there are a lot of positives here in the sense that it's very kid friendly. It is PG-13. There's a lot of fun sequences and catchy songs, like I mentioned. That honestly gave a positive spin. It wasn't your typical imagery that is usually associated with Washington Heights, in the sense that when people film up here, for the most part, this part of Manhattan, that's always unfortunately hasn't gotten the love and affection ever. It's always been, notorious with drug-ridden, narcotics, a bad imagery to such a hardworking immigrant-based community. So there are positives here with our characters. It's all centered on this one particular block, and I want to say too that there are really huge positives in the sense that yes, I was able to connect in the sense that I saw these landmarks that are very much connected to my memories. The bridge, our local church, Incarnation. There's a number of streets and avenues that those are, where most of our memories are located. Growing up as kids, attending these schools. These were our colleagues, these were our peers, these were our community pillars. It's all centered around our lives. And there's the storyline of how this block, and in particularly this bodega, is centered around these particular lives, and all of them, the common thread that weaves them all is their passion, their sense of community as a grouping, and their sueñito, which is translates to their dreams. Every one of our characters has a sueñito. From Usnavi, who's our main character, played by Anthony Ramos, to Kevin, who is the local car service entrepreneur, played by Jimmy Smits. We also have our salon entrepreneur as well, Daniela, played by Daphne Rubin Vega. She sounds familiar. She was the principal player, one of the principal players in Rent. We also have Stephanie Beatriz, played by Carla, and I believe that it wasn't part of the original source in terms of the stage play, but Carla is Daniela's life partner, which I don't think it was made known in the stage play. So we have that element, and then we have the addition of Kuka, who is played by Dasha Polanco, and if she sounds familiar, it's from Orange is the New Black, is what she's most known for, but she's done other projects and films as well, and she's up and coming. But I honestly fell in love with Benny's character, played by Corey Hawkins. I think, to me, I feel that his talents were there, vocal ability, dance ability, and aesthetic wise, and we'll get into that a little bit later. We also had Leslie Grace, our Afro-Latina. She is Kevin's daughter, and she is the one that I believe feels like she's caught between a rock and a hard place, because she is one of the lucky few, that is able to leave the neighborhood in pursuits of higher education. That unfortunately, that isn't the case for nearly everyone. But her father, because of his impulse and drive to make sure that she makes something of herself. I mean, she could take example from him, and she would actually work at the dispatch. But he wanted to impulse that drive for her to become something much more. Because I mean, they always say that, when you're a parent, that's what you want for your children, to actually even excel yourself. So she is admitted into Stanford, but there's that sense of transition that kind of takes you for a loop, because here you have the security blanket that is your neighborhood, and then automatically you are pushed into a world that you're unfamiliar with. And unfortunately, this character also goes through bouts of racism, which she was not prepared to handle, just based on her aesthetic. And unfortunately, racism is what she encounters as she's at that campus dorming. So we also see her wanting to revert back to her neighborhood, where she felt safe and in comfort zone with her family and her peers. But there's this tug of war between her father and herself, in the sense that he wants better for herself, and even though she's going through that, which he could be more understanding, he still encourages her to go back, but he's footing the bill. So in footing the bill, he has to sell a portion of his business, if not all, because it's Ivy League education. You just know it's going to cost an arm and a leg. And he doesn't want his child to take out student loans, so he does everything in his power to make sure that she does something for herself. She graduates. Now, Daphne's character, I mentioned, she has a salon where she employs Usnavi's love interest, Vanessa. Vanessa is a nail technician. And yes, Daphne herself is an entrepreneur, but unfortunately, that is the context of what I believe was the play, and now the movie, which is gentrification. Here we have a community that's very tight knit, but because of rent hikes and gentrifying, rezoning a neighborhood, they find themselves that they're going to have to move out of Washington Heights. She's already, mentioning to her customers she might have to go to Grand Concourse in the Bronx and uproot her business out there, where a lot of people are like not necessarily on board. And so essentially, because Usnavi is our main, like he's the main vein to all these characters because of the bodega, he has the lottery machine, which a lot of people place their hopes and dreams on. That if I just had that lottery ticket, my life would change. And for the most part, all of our characters have a sueñito they all aspired to have. So those are the positives. Now let's go into the negatives. Stay tuned.